You know I'm right. A special episode here, Nick Durst and Joe Calabrese. And Joe, it's what used to be called the biggest party of the summer weekend, but now you'll never see it coming. It's Summerslam. What do you think about this, especially with the fact that they're finally going to be outside of the Performance Center? They're going to be in the WWE Thunderdome.
Yeah, I saw the Thunderdome pictures all over social media today. So for anyone who doesn't know yet, the WWE and the city of Orlando, they've made an agreement to use the Amway Center where the Orlando Magic play as their new setup now. And they have basically what the NBA did, where they kind of have the monitors set up and they're going to have fans all around. And it's going to be smaller, obviously. They're not using the whole arena, but it's definitely better, I think, than the previous setup that they had at the Performance Center, using the Performance Center trainees around the ring to act as the crowd. I think it's a good move. I think it's a little innovative. And I do think that the performers are going to benefit now actually having some real live reaction and being able to perform in an actual arena again. So I'm excited. The setup looked a little cheesy. It kind of looks like exactly what the SmackDown intro video is, but I think it's a great setup, and I can't wait to see how they're going to utilize it tonight.
So, of course, SmackDown had the debut of the Thunderdome, and we need to bring in WG Sports combat writer. She does a great job, especially with WWE stuff, and she is Candace Cordelia. Candace, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're good. Can't complain. Very excited to have you on.
Likewise. Thank you so much. This is an honor to be a part of this podcast and to be able to talk about this really busy, exciting weekend ahead of us for SummerSlam, Takeover, the whole nine.
Yeah, so Candace, why don't you give our listeners a little background on your experience with wrestling?
Yeah, so honestly, it started for me as a backstage interviewer when I was living in the New York, New Jersey area. I was doing some acting and I decided to kind of go into the world of wrestling. Lo and behold, as an interviewer, I didn't even know much about the independent scene, but I started doing a whole bunch of research and ended up working with some indies in New Jersey. And when I moved back to Philadelphia, I continued on doing so, and it just became this whole thing for me where I decided that this is what I wanted to do along with my entertainment journalism and sports journalism career, and I fell in love with it and still love it. So that's really how it started for me, being a backstage interviewer and now on to writing for Double G, doing combat sports, including, as you guys know, wrestling and boxing and MMA. So it's just been a wild ride, but so far it's been fantastic.
Absolutely, and big weekend. Obviously, you have Takeover and SummerSlam. And Joe, the Wednesday Night Wars are moving over to Saturday this week. You got All Elite Wrestling, AEW Dynamite going head-to-head with NXT Takeover. So who do you think is going to win the ratings war there? Obviously, AEW, because they're on TV, but I think more people might be tuned in for NXT Takeover than All Elite Wrestling, especially considering the fact that the Saturday show was already pre-taped for AEW, and a lot of people already know the results.
Yes, I know some of my friends, other friends who like wrestling, they have already spoiled what happened Saturday, and that obviously includes me because they told me. So we'll not spoil anything here for the purpose of you two and everybody listening, but I think that will also play a big role. I do think more people will be watching Takeover, but obviously there's no way to really measure that statistic. So, but we'll see. I think a lot of people are going to be tweeting and sharing info and watching wrestling this weekend. It's one of the best weekends of the year.
It's also interesting to note that NXT is going to be preempted in September. It's going to be moving to Tuesdays on a few dates for the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. So we'll see where everything falls with the ratings war and whatnot. But Candace, on Wednesday nights, I'm assuming you're watching both like we are, but what is the show of your preference?
I have to say AEW, and there are several reasons for that, but one being I started watching NXT before it went on USA, and I was a huge fan of NXT. I still am, but for me, there's something special about AEW, and I've been tuning in each week. I find myself, switching back and forth sometimes, but a majority of the time, I'm watching AEW more than NXT. And that's just because I've found myself invested in what's happening and trying to figure out where they're going with certain storylines. Recently, in the past week or two, I've been watching a bit more of NXT, and I'm really, really invested now in some storylines, and I'm sure we'll talk about it as time goes on, especially preempting for this weekend. But overall, for me, it's been AEW. So in terms of this ratings war, it's going to be really, really interesting to see who has more viewers on Saturday, just depending on, if people are going to tune in at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for AEW, if that's a good time for them, or if folks are just going to be all in for, no pun intended, for the weekend, SummerSlam weekend for WWE in general. So I'm really curious to see how that's going to end up on Monday when we get the numbers and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joe, as we discussed on the show, I just felt like WWE was in a holding pattern since WrestleMania. I really wasn't liking all the Performance Center shows, and I felt it wasn't worth me to keep the network. So I did cancel the network. What do you think? Should I get it back this weekend and I get to watch NXT, SummerSlam, and then pay back a week later?
Yeah, I think it's worth it. And yes, it's a good point to bring up is that Payback is going to be a week after SummerSlam. So you're going to probably get your money's worth with a couple of more premium events. But in particular, this SummerSlam is going to be interesting because a lot of the main matches are just the main storyline. There aren't a lot of really secondary storylines this year at SummerSlam. So you have the two main championship matches. We'll get into that later. And everything pertaining to the two main women's matches are everything revolving around Sasha Banks and Bayley. So it's a very top-heavy card this year, but I do think it's still going to be a solid card, and I actually do think the in-ring stuff is going to be really good. So we'll get into that more later. But for you personally, I don't know why you unsubscribed. Like I've had the network since it debuted in 2014. So
I've had it too, but
at no point have I ever dropped it.
There was no point in me. I had no interest in any of the storylines. I hate Bray Wyatt. I don't like Drew McIntyre. Everything was going around them, and to me, it was just boring. Like I didn't feel it was worth me paying the subscription to watch these matches, which aren't even good. And I said, I'll definitely come back when there's live fans, without a doubt, or maybe Royal Rumble. But I just felt like all these pay-per-views, since Money in the Bank is the last pay-per-view I watched, weren't worth it for me to tune in and dedicate all these hours on a Sunday night. But Candace, where have you been standing on the overall product as of late? And do you feel it was in a holding pattern until they're added the Performance Center, or did you feel like they were really going full throttle? And for me, it's just tough because I got so used to watching the shows live, and now the taped ones are it's a little different and tougher to watch.
Yeah, I agree the majority of what you've just said. For me, it's in terms of, for instance, NXT moving from the network to TV, it felt strange. I can't quite put a finger right now on why it felt strange. I guess because maybe I was so used to watching it on WWE.
It's probably the extra hour and commercial breaks.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. There's obviously there's a flavor when you're watching something on the network. You don't have to worry about those commercial breaks. There's a certain type of way that it's produced. And now that it's on USA, now you have commercials. Now you have to, sometimes you might have to split screen where you see the commercial and then you see the match still going on. There's a waiting pattern, and it's like it took something away from the overall magic for me of NXT when it moved to the network. And now we're also in this whole ratings war drama that's continuing on. And for me, it's like, I just want to see good wrestling. Like at some point I'm just kind of, listening about the numbers and hearing about them. It's right. Fun. But at the same time, it's like me personally, I just want to see good wrestling, and I want both to win. And I know I'm going on a tangent, but I just want to see awesome wrestling. And that's what it boils down to. But I can't not say that having NXT move onto USA did something where it just lost me for a minute, and I don't know if post takeover, if that's going to change, determining on who wins and what we see on Saturday. So it's gonna be fascinating. It's just really gonna be fascinating.
So there'll be a lot of wrestling this weekend. We'll do Takeover first, Joe. The two main matches. So one of the main matches is, well, there's three main matches. So let's do an order of intrigue. So the least intriguing one to me is Keith Lee versus Karrion Kross. I don't see any way that Keith Lee is gonna lose this match, considering that he just won the title and relinquished the NXT North America Championship. Assume you'll agree with me, but how do you see the outcome of this match? Do they do it to protect Karrion Kross, or is Keith Lee going to win clean?
So I have been interested in this. I think the Kross character has been really, really well presented so far, and that speaks a lot because, again, they have a lot of these similar type of characters already. So the fact that they've been able to kind of strike lightning in a bottle, and they have a really, really great social presence to them. You're right about Keith Lee. He just won the title. This is one of those situations where I feel like this match probably would have been better 3 months from now, but they're doing it now, which leads me to believe that they may have plans to move Kross to either Raw or SmackDown, because this is the pinnacle. You know, it's like Keith Lee is the guy. Keith Lee is the champ. This is the pinnacle storyline for him. So where are they going? I do think you're right. I think it's going to have some kind of wonky finish. Both guys are going to be protected in some way, and I do think Keith Lee will retain the title.
What do you think, Candace?
I absolutely agree, to be honest. I think Keith Lee is going to retain. Both Keith and Karrion are really well-liked in the WWE universe. So it does seem really soon that they would have this kind of match at TakeOver, but I do agree that I feel there's going to be some kind of wonky finish. I'm trying to figure out if they're going to insert Scarlett in some way. Like, I don't know if they're going to do some type of swerve or something's going to happen there where she appears and shows up. But I absolutely think that Keith is going to retain. And even though for a number of people have stated that they think that this is really fast for Karrion because he's just arrived not too long ago, but he's so good that perhaps this will be a preemption to him going to the main roster. And even though that might seem really fast for some people, it doesn't seem too far off of a prediction in my eyes. So yeah, but Keith is definitely going to retain this.
All right, and now the other match, which is intriguing, I think there's an obvious choice here who should win, but there's been some scandals of late on Twitter, and that's North American Championship match. Bronson Reed versus Damian Priest versus Johnny Gargano versus Cameron Grimes versus Velveteen Dream. I think Velveteen Dream should be winning that match, Joe, but if they want to avoid a PR disaster, I think they should just go with Johnny Gargano, to get the title back. First two-time champ.
So, yes, you're right. There were trends this week of Fire Velveteen Dream. Now, he had his own controversies surrounding him now. Whether the allegations are true or not, honestly, there's no way for the three of us to really know that. And obviously, Nick and I, based on previous podcasts, we are still very high on Velveteen Dream as a character and as a performer. And I think he's still he will be destined to do great things once he moves on from NXT. But this match is strange because, to me, it seemed like they were building Dexter Lumis up to win it. And obviously that's not going to happen because he's not in the match because of injury, and don't know if he's still going to be a late addition or not. I think it's just kind of an odd collection of talent in particular. I don't think a guy like Cameron Grimes really benefits from winning the North American title. Bronson Reed, I don't know. Obviously, he's a bigger character, and these bigger guys don't necessarily win ladder matches, so maybe it's the time for him to do so. I don't know. I know they like Damian Priest. I don't know what his ceiling is. I don't know if he's really a candidate to win this match. I think the safe choice is Johnny Wrestling, and he obviously is the one true NXT veteran in the match. Obviously, if you want to count Dream too, but I honestly don't know where this match is going. I sincerely don't think he's going to